This is Chris Kell with your Core Complete Standing Posture Tests. For standing posture tests, we're going to start out with our first test, which we call a mirror test. All right, and ideally you're going to need just a full-length mirror and something that you can compare kind of the midline of your body to. I'm going to use my what I call my FMS board here, and what I want to do is just place this here. It should be about the height of your head or taller. I'm just going to stand next to this board here, and I'm going to look at myself in the mirror. All right, what I'm looking for here in an ideal situation, the board should pass directly down the midline of my body. So, the sides of my shoulders, it's going through just directly to the side. So there's, and I'm able to kind of see my spinal curve here as well. So there's a nice, kind of comparing this side to side here, I see a nice slight arch in my lower back here, a slight curving of my middle back, and then again a slight arch here in my neck. All right, and what I'm looking for here is sort of deviations in this curve. For kyphosis, okay, our first issue that we're dealing with, this is excessive flexion in the upper back. So what we would see here is an excessive rounding forward of the shoulders. Your shoulders and sort of your back would be well forward of this midline, an exaggerated hump of sort of the upper part. All right, for our second issue for lordosis, all right, we're going to see an exaggerated curve of the lower back. All right, and we can see that kind of here. Call that badunkadunk posture because again, it looks like kind of the stomach is accentuated, the lower back is arched, and this is just a very deep curve in the lower back. All right, for a sway back posture, it's going to be the opposite. All right, our hips are going to be really leaning forward. We're in what is called posterior pelvic tilt. It almost looks like the person's like the top part of their body is kind of swayed back behind the midline here, whereas the front part is, or the hips are kind of swayed forward. And then our last posture here is a hip rotation. With this, what we're actually looking for is we're trying to compare each portion of the body. So my, what we call my, each side of my pelvis here should be level, each shoulder should be level, each kneecap should be level. If we find that there's a tilting here, one side is jutting out to the side, one shoulder is higher than the other or not, we're dealing with some sort of rotational element that we need to deal with. All right, so that's just one of the first things we want to look at to kind of spot, confirm what we've got going on. All right, for our second test, okay, we've got what is called a toe touch test. All right, what I'm going to ask the client to do here is just place the feet together, chest up, just keep the legs locked out, just bend down and touch the toes. Okay, now I'm looking for a couple things here. All right, once again with kyphosis, what we'll see as they're coming down is an excessive flexion of the upper back. Like everything should come down fairly as a unit. If we see an excess sort of disconnection with the upper back, that's going to indicate kyphosis. All right. By contrast, if we see excessive hip flexion here, but not much rounding of the upper back, all right, that tells us that again we might be dealing with a lordosis. All right. Whereas if we see maybe a tilting to one side or the other, okay, then we are dealing with some sort of an issue with a hip rotation. Okay. That would be the thing. If they can't touch their toes at all, that would be lordosis. That's something where we're dealing with tightness of the hips or whatever it may be. All right, now for our third and final test, all right, we have our pelvic tilt test. All right, and we like to do this in two positions here. So the first position that I'm going to take is just place my back up against the wall. All right, I'm going to instruct the client to tighten their abs. All right, I'm going to look at it with the arms down. I'm going to ask them to just put their hands, or you can put your hand behind the small of their lower back. All right, if you can really fit your hand pretty comfortably behind there's an exaggerated arch. Okay, we know that they're dealing with some sort of lordosis. All right, by contrast, if there's a kind of an excess arching of if we can fit their hand behind their neck as well, okay, again, we know that they're sort of dealing with this kyphosis, this forward head posture. So the two areas that we really want to look at are the small of the lower back and the small of the neck. Okay, ideally, we should not be able to get the full hand through here. There should be a pretty narrow space. All right, so that's what we want to look at. We're also going to compare with the arms overhead, okay, to see if that changes things a bit. If so, we might be dealing with some issues with the upper body. All right, for core training purposes, we're also going to look at this on the floor. All right, again, because this is where they're actually doing their core training. So once again, I'm just going to confirm whether or not we're dealing with sort of a flat back situation, whether it's sway back, all right, by just placing my hand under the low back. If there's an arching, okay, we know that there's probably a lordosis going on, whereas if they're swayed back, if they're pressed into the floor here, okay, then there will not be a lordosis there. If we were to do if we were to instruct the client to press their back into the floor and do an exercise like bed bugs with a swayed back, with a flat back already, that's going to put them into a precarious situation. So we really want to watch out for that. And those are just some tests that we can do pretty easily to confirm, what the biggest issue is. You can test mobility afterwards to kind of get that confirmation, but just kind of make note of, what seems most apparent from these tests.